I've got a really interesting video coming up. We've been to the graveyard and we've resurrected some detecting dinosaurs. Here we are with the metal detector battles. I've got a range of machines here. I thought that'd give you probably the most interest. But one thing's for sure, there's no pretty machines here. They've all been used and abused and thoroughly put through their paces. These are a part of my collection which I've had for many years. So I'm going to pick up each detector individually and just have a little talk about it. And don't forget to stay tuned until the very end of this video because I want you guys to set me a challenge. Right, what machine should we choose first? Well, let's start from the nearest. It's called the Tesoro Gold Saber. So what can we say about the good old Tesoro Gold Saber? Well, this one's got the 10-inch polo coil on it. When Tesoros first come out, they had mostly polo coils, concentric coils, and then after a few years they developed the wide scan coil, the 2D coil. So this machine in particular runs off 8 AA batteries and it's got some pretty neat features. It's got a notch feature which makes it brilliant for searching parks. The notch feature can allow you to eliminate a troublesome target, but on this one you'll see notch accept or reject, which means rather than eliminate a certain target, you can accept a certain target. So this was a really big hit in the US and it set the park hunting to another level. When we were swinging these things, there was no social media about. If you wanted to sell your machine, you'd have to fill out a form in the magazine and post it off to the magazine and wait for them to upload your advert, which could be months. That's how primitive it really was. But today, if you've got a nice treasure story or something like that, you just get on social media and send it directly to the manufacturers. So things have really changed thanks to social media. But going back to this machine, when I pick it up, it probably weighs about £3 if I'm honest. We used to swing these all day long, but they weren't a tight machine. For example, there's no cam locks on it. So every time you swung it, the thing would just flop around all over the place. But back then, we didn't know any difference, so we just got on with it. You'll see on a lot of my machines, I've got lots of tape wrapped around the handles because we had to go out with tape because stuff fell off them. Now, the Tesoro Silver Saber Plus, this one's a Plus, it's got the all metal switch. An absolutely awesome machine. These are still one of the best machines you can use on a Roman site because they've got fantastic iron rejection, they really have. Set the discrimination to 0 and that'll reject all your iron, and sensitivity to maximum, and that's all you had to do, and they chip away on the Roman site and get you some good stuff. Once again, the concentric coil, but you can put different coils onto any Tesoro really. But back in the day, we had to send our machines to Pentechnic and he put a coil swap over switch on them because if you went from concentric to wide scan, you'd have to swap the frequency range. Well, it was more like tuning. You'd have to change the tuning over to the certain coil. So nowadays it's all done with microprocessor, but back then we had to have a little switch. And as you'll see on this machine, I don't know if you can see it there, I'll do you a close-up, supplied by Regton. This is so old, it's even got the old phone number where the number now is 0121, the dialing code. This one's 021. As you can see, you've got your headphone socket at the bottom there, so when you laid your machine down, you quite often broke your headphone jack off. Bit of a design problem there. Batteries, it's got 6 AA batteries in a little pod there, or if you were desperate you could run it off one 9-volt battery, and it's got a lovely little button there what clicks it in. So that's about it, the Tesoro Silver Saber Plus. Now when these first come out in America back in probably the 80s, early 80s, they were sold pretty much as children's toys, and an English guy called Frank Mellish went over to the Tesoro factory, took one of these home just to have a play with, and he realised that these weren't toys, these were actually really capable machines. This is the Tesoro Amigo. Simple little machine, turn it on, set your discrimination, and off you went. Headphone jack in the side there, speaker, one 9-volt battery, probably the same circuitry as the Tesoro Silver Saber. You'll notice that the Amigo's got a hardwired coil, so you can't interchange different coils unless you wanted to unsolder some bits and pieces, which really isn't worth it. But I think Tesoro missed a little bit of a trick back then. They never really followed up on the Amigo, where I think it's a good little machine. I don't think you'll get hold of them these days. They're really, really rare to find, and that's why I've got two of them, just for collector's sake. Now here we go with the Tesoro Dejan. Now this is one of the last of the decent Tesoros. Several controls on this, but what I liked about it, you've got a twin discrimination. Now with the twin discrimination, you could set discrimination 1 for iron, discrimination 2 slightly above iron, and you flick between the two discriminations using the trigger just underneath the stem. And if you pull the trigger back, you had a pinpoint mode. It's a real shame that Tesoro aren't with us today. I think what they did after the Dejan, they kind of took their foot off the pedal and didn't evolve. They didn't give the customers what they were asking for. And of course, competition started to become a lot stronger. I mean, when we were using the Sabers, there was very little competition out there, 2 or 3 machines to choose from, if any. But then when the Dejan came out, things got a little bit harder and they just didn't move with the times. And sadly, I think that's where they went wrong. Although detectors are changing, I think detectorists are changing as well. What detectorists want from a machine. This is all part of the equations, and manufacturers need to listen to their customers. And what about this one then? The Tesoro Euro Saber. Not a bad machine, but this one was built specifically for me by a company called Pentechnics. Now Pentechnics still do all your Tesoro repairs and modifications, and I had this little machine built specifically for searching spoil heaps, and also if I'm searching for hoards, this is a perfect pinpointer because it's got a little bit more poke. Well, it's got quite a lot more poke than your conventional pinpointer, and it's easy to get in the hole and wiggle around. You've got a pinpoint button on there which turns it from discrimination to all metal. So in theory, you've got a discriminating pinpoint probe. And now it's time to get the big guns out. This is the Nautilus DMC 2B. Now, you're gonna probably laugh at this machine because it does look really, really radical, and the fact that it's got 4 9-volt batteries hanging out of its arse doesn't make it very attractive, does it? But trust me, this is one of the best machines I've ever used. And if I had a choice out of all of these machines, it would be this one, because this one's a little bit special, and I'll tell you why. Apart from the knobs and controls being robbed off a 1950s gas cooker, it's got some really good features. For a start, the 2 knobs on the front, you actually balance the search coil with it. So if you're going from a hot environment to a cold environment, or the temperature changes, you rebalance your search coil to the perfect null. Now, modern machines, this is all done with microprocessors, so we don't have to worry about it, but this is a true machine where the user has got full control of it. Okay, you've got the voltage there, so you can turn the transmit power up to 44 volts. Sensitivity, discrimination, and on this side of the machine, you've got the all metal adjustments, and I'll tell you about the all metal adjustments in a minute. On the back there, you've got a auto tune, you've got your all metal or discrimination, and on and off. Now, this on and off switch is an absolute nightmare because the minute you put the machine down, you flick it on or flick it off, it drives you mad. So at some point I need to put a push button on there. It's got a button on the top there where you actually retune the machine. So if it starts drifting, just hit the retune button and it pulls everything back into shape. So okay, let me tell you about the discrimination and the all metal circuit. Now the thing I love about this machine, which you're probably going to hate, just saying about it, it puts you off detecting for life. It's got discrimination circuit in your right ear, all metal circuit in your left ear. So when you're detecting, you get the good target in your right ear, bad target in your left ear, depending on how you've got it set. Now this sounds a little bit like audio fruit salad, but trust me, once you get the hang of it, it's absolutely perfect. Iron identification takes a little bit of mastering because you're listening to the two tones. So if you're going over an iron target, which let's say misshaped iron just for example, where it does give an audio sound, a good one, as you're coming over the target, you'll get the iron buzz coming in your left ear, and then it will ping in your right ear. And now this is all a matter of timing. If you're going over a good target, your all metal buzz and your good signal will be lined up. They will come into your ears at the same time. And I think this is why I like this machine so much. It really is a challenge, and challenging machines really do float my boat. I like it. The guy who made this, out of Tyndall, I think his name was, he's sadly passed on now. You can't really get spares for them. You can still buy them from time to time. They come up on eBay. I know Kevin at Staffordshire Detectors occasionally gets these. But what I will say, if you get one, send your coil off to Pentechnic to have it tuned, because the chances are your coil will be out of tune, because these are constructed of like polystyrene inside and stuff like that, not like our modern resins. So it's essential that that search coil is in tune, or the machine just won't work properly. Dave at Pentechnic set all this up and it's been no problem ever since. Deep, don't go there. It is a super deep machine, brilliant fun to use. My top choice of the dinosaurs. So what have we got there left? Here we go. Here's another one. The Minelab Explorer Mark II. When we bought these machines, a lot of us were disappointed, me included, because back then the adverts were selling it as the ultimate machine. Well, it wasn't the ultimate machine, because for a start, it was heavy, the cam locks were no good, the stems used to fall apart, the arm cups used to crack. It was a bit of a nightmare, to be fair with you. We could see its potential, but when we got it on the Roman site, it couldn't keep up with machines like the Tesoro Lobo. It simply didn't have the speed, it didn't have the iron separation. And the best thing we did for these machines was put an aftermarket coil on them. This is the Ceph coil, and that transformed this machine no end. And I still believe there's only one way to run these Explorers, and that is with no discrimination and 50-tone conductive. It's a little bit of a headbanger, but when you're running it in that program, you can certainly see the potential, and it speeds it up a little bit. Now, if you go through the archives of my videos, you will see my Explorer 2 setup guide, and just showing you how it performs using the 50-tone conductive with the Ceph coil. With all that said and done, it was a bit of a game changer in many ways, because of its radical looks and the way it operated with the multi-frequencies. But once again, going through the menu today, you think, crikey, it is really slow on the processor. But fair play to Minelab for thinking out of the box and bringing out something completely different to what we were using in the day. Now this one is the Sovi, the Minelab Sovereign. This one's a little bit different. I'll tell you about that in a second. The early Sovereigns use the coin search coil. Lovely little coil, once again, polystyrene inside. Everything used to get out of shape after a while. The Sovereign is a great beach machine, but sadly the coil isn't waterproof, so I don't know what went wrong there. Now you've got a load of different Sovereign models. You've got the Sovereign Mark I, the XS2A, the Sovereign GT, the Sovereign Elite. I've probably missed a few out, but this one is an interesting one because this is the very first Sovereign. As you can see, the controls on it, there's a lot of difference between that and the more modern Sovereigns. Yeah, it works on multi-frequency in a strange sort of way, perhaps a little bit of PI thrown into it, I don't know. Achilles heel, batteries. It absolutely eats batteries. And also the way it connects onto the stem isn't too good. And also you'll notice this is on a different stem. This is on an XLT stem, which makes it very well balanced and really usable. And now a real blast from the past. This is the White's XLT. Now, when the XLT first came out, it blew our minds. We just couldn't get our head round the computerized menu on it. It was really way above its competitors. You had so many adjustments within this menu. You could make the XLT do whatever you wanted it to do. Its only real competitor was the Minelab Sovereign. I think it was the XS2A. Inland, this runs circles around the Sovereign. It really did, because you could adjust that recovery speed. You could get the XLT to do what it wanted. And you'll see this one is had a really tough life. It really has been used, and that's a sign of a good metal detector. If you see a metal detector which is dirty, beaten up, you know this has been out every Sunday for the last 10 years. You'll see there I've got some stickers there for the Loros Rally 2000. What else can I say? The batteries go in the back. There's a rechargeable battery with it, or AAs, which you buy a separate pack for. Once again, going through the menus, you can really see how slow the processor is. Although it's only probably a nanosecond, it seems like forever to change programs. There on the back, you see I've got a little cap. Now, inside that cap, on some of my machines, I've got a little bit of ferrite where I tune the machine in the field to the coil using ferrite. It's like ground balancing to ferrite, and you used to get a little bit more performance out of your machine. Concentric coil as well, 9.5-inch concentric coil, running on about 7 kilohertz, I think. Well, we're getting to the end of this now. I've got 2 machines left, so let's get on with the next one. The Fisher 1236 X2. Now, this is a funny one. This is my dad's machine, God bless him, but I did have one before he got his. And strange things with this machine, it's got a few niggles and it's got a few things none of us really understood about it. On the controls, you've got sensitivity, volume, frequency, off shift, discrimination, and you had a silencer. Now, the silencer was a bit of an iron check, so if you went over a target and it's a bit suspicious, if you hit the silencer down, it'll confirm yay or nay. And then you had the pinpoint button, which was just far too loud, you could never use. Now, the first Achilles heel with this machine is indeed the frequency, 5 kilohertz. Now, I can see why they use such a low frequency, because the lower frequencies, 5-7 kilohertz, tend to hit better on the big American silver coins, and they ignore the foil quite a bit for park hunting. But for us guys in Europe with our small silver hammers and small Roman coins, they really didn't cut it on them sort of targets. The batteries. Now, people didn't believe us until we showed them how bad 9-volt batteries are. You know, the square 9-volt batteries. Well, for a start, before I even get there, the battery pods on this machine, you open the back up, slotted the 9-volt battery in the back, well, 2 of them, and you close the pods up. Now, that sounds simple in practice, but if you bought the wrong brand of batteries, they wouldn't fit in the hole. So you ended up having to file down the plastic pods to accommodate any sort of battery. If you put your 9-volt batteries in and started detecting, for the first 30 minutes, you couldn't put a step wrong. Then all of a sudden, your fines rate had stopped going down, going down, going down. If you stopped and put a new set of batteries in, your fines rate would go back up again and you'd be killing it. Half an hour, your fines rate would start dropping. Pull the original set of 9-volt batteries out, what had been rested, put them in the machine, and you're up and running again. Now, with our little club, I'd say 50% of us were using these 1236 X2s at the time, and we were all alternating the batteries, and this made a massive difference. And we also went on to making some changes to the Tesoros that run the 9-volt batteries. We put a 6AA battery pack under the arm and solder it in. And once again, the machines had maximum power all through the day. I don't know why it does this, but we've proved it on so many different occasions. Coil on the 1236 X2, concentric. A good quality coil, well constructed, very rugged. In fact, the whole machine is built like a tank. It's a brilliant piece of kit. Well, it was in its day, let's put it that way. So that's the 1236 X2. And now, this is when things really started changing with my detecting. I got hold of the original Goldmaxx. This model is the Goldmaxx Power, but the original Goldmaxx changed everything. Everyone started talking about the Goldmaxx, started using them, and that's where the story starts really. The one after the Goldmaxx was the Goldmaxx Power. Had a few little adjustments on it, a few little features you could change, but primarily it's pretty much the same machine. This has got a silencer, it can use the cordless headphones, it's got an iron volume, ground balance, two-tone or three-tone. If you wanted to change this from three-tone to two-tone, so when you turn the machine on, it was a three-tone machine, but if you want to change it to two-tone, you just go up, down with a silencer, that'd change it to two-tone. This is where coil construction really started going to the next level. These resin filled coils never went out of tune. Really good quality, bulletproof in fact. So yeah, that's where really the dinosaurs started changing into the modern machine when the XP Goldmaxxes hit the market. But we all know it doesn't matter what machine you've got, if you've got the right site, you're gonna find stuff on it. Every one of these machines are still capable of making amazing finds even today. So just because they're old machines, it doesn't mean they're fit for the bin. And now moving on to 2020, and we've got some real radical stuff. Super light, digitally controlled, wireless, the list goes on. But I've got a question for you. Do you think metal detectors have come on a long way in the last 20 years? Post below your thoughts, I'd like to hear them. Now, I want you guys to set me a challenge. You've seen all these metal detectors and you've heard me talk about them. What one would you like to see me use in the field? Post below what detector you'd like to see me use, and when this COVID-19 madness is over, I'll see if I can get out there and do you a little video. But until then, don't forget, like, subscribe, do all them sort of things so you don't miss another video, and I'll see you again in the field.